How are you, folks? Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. Today is Thursday, October 24th, and we are less than 2 weeks away from the presidential election. Finally, this has been a long election season. It feels like after the 2020 election season just started again right then. So it's been 4 years essentially of an election season. So I think we're all kind of burned out and ready for this to be done with. And so I want to do a state of the race and just sort of summarize where we're at and what I think is going to happen. But before I do that, let me just say this. And I say this in a lot of videos. Nothing is for certain because we are living in crazy times and things that I never thought I would see happen have happened. So anything is possible. But that being said, Donald Trump should win this race. And let me explain why. But let's go back to 2020 first and look at his loss in 2020. Of course, he lost by I think 100,000 votes over a few states. Just a small amount. And this is with the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, and changes in the voting laws, some that I think were unconstitutional because the legislature of a state is responsible for the voting laws, yet the secretaries of states in certain states change them unilaterally, which in my opinion is unconstitutional. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court booted the case. I think they were like, we don't want to deal with this. There's rioting going on. People are pissed off. And we don't want to take on this responsibility. But I think they should have because, again, in my opinion, it was unconstitutional to change these laws. So they changed the laws. People are pissed off. Mail-in voting. And despite all of these things going against Trump, he barely lost. Barely lost. Again, 100,000 votes over a handful of states. And it took days for them to count those ballots or find those ballots that they needed to give Biden the push. So Trump should have won in 2020, probably did. And so based on that, looking at 2024, it really should be a landslide. So, for example, polling, 2016, Trump was way behind. 2020, Trump was even further behind than he was in 2016. 2024, national polls, Trump is actually winning in many of these polls. And it's actually, in the aggregate, leading or tied with Kamala Harris. He has historically, again, been 5 or 8 points behind. So if he's actually tied with Kamala Harris in national polling, and he lost by 100,000 votes in 2020, how does Kamala Harris win? So that's the national polls. What about the battleground state polls? He's doing even better. He is leading every battleground state poll in the aggregate. And again, usually he is losing by several points. Now he's winning. Again, how does he lose if we follow the trend from 2016 to 2020, where he outperforms the polls by several points? So just based on that alone, it's like this guy should have it wrapped up. But let's move on from the polls to the candidates. We know what Trump is. He has his base. And then we have Kamala Harris. Now, back when Kamala Harris got the nomination back in July, I said this, and I stand by it. I don't see how Kamala Harris can appeal to white, blue-collar men in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. She is a obnoxious California progressive who grew up well off. She has nothing in common with these men. At least Biden could play his whole thing about I'm Scranton Joe, I'm for the working class, I'm for the unions. That did actually appeal to a lot of blue-collar guys in those Midwest states. But Kamala Harris, back in July, I'm like, I just can't look at a scenario where she could actually appeal to these people. And of course, she can because she has nothing in common with them. Absolutely zero. And not just that, of course, she just, as a person, not very appealing to anybody. So when we had that swap, I said, people are going, oh, this is good. We got rid of Biden. We have somebody who's allegedly more coherent. I'm going, yeah, but what are they going to lose? What's their appeal to those battleground states? And I thought that was a big issue, and that's why you hear grumblings now, people saying, you know what? Maybe Biden was still a better choice than Kamala Harris. Watching some of her interviews in her town halls, is she any more coherent than Joe Biden? Not really. She is historically bad. So you look at the candidate Kamala, she's terrible. So the polling, terrible candidate. How does Trump lose this? And, and we're also ignoring the whole process of how she got the nomination. It was great during the Al Smith dinner where Trump points out that, Kamala got it through, actually it wasn't him. He said it was actually Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, who points out that they essentially stole the nomination from Joe Biden, pushed him out. It was undemocratic, and they put her in. There has to be some Democrats, not a lot, apparently, but some Democrats who are soured by that and want to punish the party for having done that. I think there are some Democrats who feel that way. Certainly people like Bobby Kennedy, Brett Weinstein, and others look at the whole process and go, how can we call ourselves the Democratic Party when it's the party elite who picked our candidate, a candidate who in 2020 bombed when she was running for president. So she is an absolutely terrible candidate, worse than I actually expected. I thought she would do better, but she's worse, and that's a shocking thing to say. I mean, because she was already so bad. And it's even, to me, it's frustrating that she's even has a chance of winning. I don't think she will, but I mean, theoretically she does. And how is that possible? Not to mention her very, very weird and creepy running mate, Tim Walz. It's ironic that guy came out on the first day accusing J.D. Vance of being weird. And this guy, Tim Walz is, what a strange cookie he is. And his wife, talk about a nut job. The way she communicates in some of her campaigning, she talks to the crowd like they're 5-year-olds, doing little gestures and doing sing-alongs. Talk about a wackadoodle. Whereas J.D. Vance, who when he was initially picked, some people were confused by that. And I admit myself that I was like, I don't think it's gonna matter that much who the VP is. I was sort of agnostic on the issue. But watching him in the interviews and in the debates, he was absolutely the right pick. He's so relatable. He's so normal. He's not weird at all. And being from Ohio, being 41 years old, 40 years old, looking at his background, he absolutely can appeal to those Midwestern blue-collar, Democrat men. So I think he actually was a great pick. And moving forward in 2028, if DeSantis has to run against J.D. Vance in 2028, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I really do think DeSantis made a mistake not being Trump's VP and running against him. Because if he has to run in a primary against J.D. Vance without coming from the VP spot, I don't think he has the charisma to pull it off. And I think J.D. Vance might beat him out in 2028 if they run against each other. But, of course, that's 4 years off. We'll worry about that then. So Trump's pick of J.D. Vance, good pick. And Tim Walz, terrible pick. And so now that we are, again, less than 2 weeks from this election, the media, of course, is freaking out. I have never seen such rhetoric from MSNBC, CNN. You go online, on Reddit, on Twitter, or X, and they're losing their minds because they know that they are losing, and they're losing badly, and they're freaking out. And, of course, now we have them calling Trump Hitler. He praises Hitler. He wants his general to be like the general's word for Hitler, blah, blah, blah. Kamala came out and gave a 3-minute speech from the VP residence attacking Trump about this Hitler stuff. But it's not landing. We've known this guy now for since 2015. And before then, as a non-politician, it's just not landing. In fact, I think the more they do it, I think the more it turns off your independent, undecided voter. I mean, because how many times can you call this guy Hitler before you go, okay, you're just being ridiculous? But they have nothing else because clearly Kamala Harris cannot convince you to vote for her based off of her plans, which she can never actually describe in detail. She can't appeal to people by her personality because she has none. So what do? Well, apparently you pull the old Hitler card and it ain't working. And the more it doesn't work, the louder they scream it and the more shrill they become. So it's actually kind of entertaining to watch this and watch these people freak out and try to pull this card that is failing dismally. And the other thing that they're doing too, you have a lot of people, celebrities, journalists, who are saying that Trump is going to come after them if he gets into power, which of course, again, is idiotic. But why are they saying this, besides the fact they're trying to scare people? Well, I think they're putting themselves in Trump's shoes. If what happened to Trump had happened to them, all this lawfare of trying to bankrupt him, throwing people in jail, his friends, his campaign managers, him himself, had it been them that this had happened to, and they got back into power, they would want revenge. So they're really projecting onto Trump what they would do if they were him, because they know he has every right to be pissed off, and he has every right to go after them. And you know what? He's not going to. And part of me wishes he would, because these people absolutely deserve it. But Trump, despite what they say about him, is actually a pretty nice guy who is not going out there to get revenge. I think somebody mentioned that on Tucker Carlson, Paul Manafort. He's not a revenge guy. He's 78. He wants to make America great again. And he wants to leave a legacy of a beautiful America, the greatest America, the best America. That's what Trump wants. I don't think he wants to get actual revenge. Although, again, there are a few people, especially in the intel community, that need to be looked at, because what they have done and the power they still have is dangerous for Trump and for our country. And the worry is that when Trump gets back into power, if he wins this election, that they're going to repeat what happened in 2016, where they lay booby traps out there for his administration and undermine him at every turn and make it impossible for him to actually govern and get anything done. That is a very big concern. But hopefully Trump has learned from his last term that he needs to be much more careful about who he selects for his administration. And he needs to be able to recognize these traps that they're going to lay for him. Because right now, they're already planning them. Those traps are already being laid out right now. And that is a very big concern. So some of these intel guys, he might need to go after. And whoever he picks for Attorney General, he needs to pick somebody with a pair of balls who is not scared to mix it up. Merrick Garland, the current one, he goes after people all the time. He's got balls. We don't need another Jeff Sessions, who, nice guy, good guy, made a huge mistake by recusing himself with the Russian collusion thing, which allowed his second in command, a deep state jerk, to appoint Robert Mueller. And that created a year and a half of garbage that could have been avoided if we had a person at AG that had a pair and wasn't going to be pushed around by the deep state. And unfortunately, Jeff Sessions was. So Trump definitely has a lot to prepare for if he wins this election. And again, he should win this election. If there were no cheating, I could say right now, 100% he wins this election. But because the deep state will do anything, because of the laws, because of mail-in voting, anything is possible. And we already have states saying it's going to take us days to count the votes, which is absolutely ridiculous, because there are third world countries who are able to count them in one day. So it's embarrassing, and that process is convoluted for a reason, because it opens the door for them to cheat. And if they're behind, which is why we need to surge. We need to make sure that we are beyond the margin of cheating, which is probably 3 or 4 points. So I think we're going to do it. The media wouldn't be melting down the way they are if they had any confidence in winning. But again, anything is possible. Just make sure you vote. Do not take this for granted. So November 5th, hopefully we find out on that day that Trump is going to win. Maybe not, but that depends on us. Can we push it so hard that they can't cheat and that they're forced to declare his victory on November 5th? Let's do that. That will be fantastic, and that will be the first step in trying to make America great once again. Well, that is it for now. Thank you for joining me. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.